Welcome back, everybody, from the Passover break. We're on the third day of the month of ER 5779. Holy Land, Holy Apple, Holy Time. It's good to be back here with one and all. Sure hope you bought a few seatbelts today. We have a tremendously important class. The title of the class today is the Poway synagogue attack. The problem, the solution, you will hear nowhere else. Poway synagogue attack near San Diego, California. The problem, the solution, you will hear nowhere else. We start off the class, of course, with our prayers and thoughts to those that were injured in Poway, California on the last day of Passover, and of course to Miss Lori that was murdered. May her blood be avenged by God, and of course those that the injured are in our prayers daily for a speedy recovery, and our hearts and thoughts and prayers are with all the Jews, not only in Poway, but all the Jews all over the world, praying for their protection. Okay, with that said, let's go on. Let's first take the statistics on the spike, the hike in anti-Semitism, not only in America, but all over the world. So I have a few lines that I want to read here. First, we'll start with in Tel Aviv University, there's a study center called the Cantor Study Center. And it writes the following: Assaults targeting Jews rose 13% in 2018. They recorded, this study center recorded nearly 400 cases worldwide, with more than a quarter of the major violent cases taking place in the United States. Now, once again, when you hear numbers, please always remember, a lot of people, most people, they do not want to make a big deal about it. They don't want to, they're busy. They don't want to waste their time. They don't want to have to go and be interrogated and then come down again and lose a couple days of work. So we have to understand that you have to at least double the amount of incidents. The study goes on. The spike was the most dramatic in Western Europe, where Jews have faced even greater dangers and threats. In Germany, for instance, there was a 70% increase in anti-Semitic violence. Now, any Jew that, after World War II, after the Holocaust, can go and live in Germany, I'm not going to say it, we'll just stop at that, but you probably get my jest here. Disgusting. There's an increasing sense of emergency amongst Jews in many countries around the world, said Moshe Cantor, president of the European Jewish Congress. Interesting, same name. Maybe he's related to the person that donated that study. An umbrella group representing Jewish communities across the continent. It is now clear that anti-Semitism is no longer limited to the far left, far right, and radical Islamist triangle. It has become mainstream and accepted often by civil society, he said. Listen to those words. We can't say it's right-wing, it's left-wing, it's Islam, it's all over the board. In addition to the shooting attacks, assaults and vandalism. Cantor also noted the increased anti-Semitic vitriol online and in newspapers, hatred, including a recent anti-Semitic cartoon that appeared in the New York Times International edition. It depicted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a dog wearing a Star of David collar and leading a blind man with a skull cap wearing President Donald Trump. Anti-Semitism has recently progressed to the point of calling into question the very continuation of Jewish life in many parts of the world. Listen to his words. Listen to these words. They're really amazing. To me, these words are prophetic. Like God placed these words into this dude's mouth. Cantor added, as we saw with the second mass shooting of a synagogue in the United States, many parts of the world that were previously thought of as safe are no longer that for the Jews. Next, the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, has tracked anti-Semitic incidents since 1979, drawing on reports from victims, police, and news publications. Remember, double the figures. The worst, okay, so got it, ADL, they've been tracking anti-Semitism since 1979. Since 1979, so they're 40 years strong. The worst year of anti-Semitism was 1994 with 2,066 incidents. By 2013, the total had fallen to 751 incidents. However, since 2013, for the last 5 years, it has been rising ever since, with the biggest all-time annual jump coming in 2017, when the tally climbed 57% to 1,986 incidents, very, very close to the all-time high in 1994. The majority of those incidents were harassment, which rose 41% to 1,015 incidents, including 163 bomb threats against Jewish community centers and synagogues. Vandalism rose 86% to 952 cases. Let's look into the FBI. An FBI report released in November 2018 detailed hate crimes across more than 3,000 police agencies. That's pretty big. It's a pretty big scope. They're in contact with 3,000 police agencies across the U.S. Showed a more than 17% uptick in 2017, fueled by increases in attacks against religious and racial minorities. The count by the FBI documented 7,175 hate crimes in 2017. The tally was 1,054 attacks higher than the previous year. It included a 37% increase in anti-Jewish crimes, a 24% increase in attacks on Latinos, and nearly a 16% rise in crimes against African Americans. Folks, let me tell you, on my computer, people send me information, anti-Semitism, attacks, and we could spend here an entire week if I just went over the pages. I mean, just yesterday, there was an incident in Williamsburg where a gang of teenagers or young adults came and punched out a Jewish man. and just yesterday. And in fact, the ADL, if I'm not mistaken, they're offering $5,000 reward for anybody with information on the attack. So it's out there, and we could spend a week, but we're not going to do that because the problem, what's the problem and what's the solution is much, much more important. So let's look at different ideas, solutions that have been brought to the public in the last week and a half. Let's look at the different ideas. Okay, we have article number 1, Poway and the Struggle for America's Soul. Got it? The struggle for America's soul. This is an amazing concept, and we'll see it over and over again. As if the Jews, the Jewish people, what's on our agenda, number 1 on our agenda today, is not the Jews, it's trying to save the American conscience, the American soul. Priorities here, amazing. Just this headline is enough. This is by a prominent rabbi in Chabad named Tzvi Freeman. Here's what he writes. If you're a Jew in America today, there's a good chance you're concerned. First, the largest hate-driven massacre of Jews in American history occurs in Pittsburgh. Then, precisely 6 months later, with an almost identical fingerprint of hatred, a deadly attack on a synagogue in Poway, California. Whose problem is this? Listen to these words. Folks, it's very, very important. Anybody listening here, get it out. Get this message out. This is a message of life and death here. Wherever you could think of sticking it, if you're connected to different blogs, have them post it. Spread it. Get the word out. Unfortunately, because of our financial or non-financial circumstances, so we don't have the people that are backing us that know how to do it and get us out there. Get the message out there. So everybody here is a soldier on the front line that's listening, that's watching. Whose problem is this? The Jewish people are no weaker for these attacks. Synagogues are not about to empty out because of a handful of disturbed, poisoned minds, and much to the contrary. My contention is that this is not a Jewish problem. It's a world's problem. Both these attacks, along with many other violent crimes and hatred in recent years, are symptoms of a malicious disease spreading unabated in America, in Europe, and at the world at large. But that's a problem that we as Jews are going to have to assist in healing. Got it? We're going to have to assist healing America, someone else's country. America is suffering. America is suffering. We need to take a broader perspective. This whole perspective of this is very, very broad. How about the Jewish people here? How about saving the Jews? How about security for Jews, fighting for Jews? Muslims, Christians, and others have been under siege as well. Just a few days before the Poway shooting, a young war veteran plowed into a crowd crossing the streets in Sunnyvale, California. He told police he thought they were Muslims. Is there a medicine for this plague? The Rebbe, the Chabad Rebbe, prescription, unique and counterintuitive, was this: fix the education system. How? Introduce a moment of silence every day into the school curriculum and take it seriously. Can you take these words seriously? Every single day, the Jewish people are being attacked. Social media, newspapers, you name it. It's not right, it's not left. It's all over. It's not Islam. It's all over the place. And we're supposed to take this seriously. The Jewish people are in danger, and we're supposed to take this moment of silence seriously. Fix the education system. Okay, we have a new job. The Jewish people have a new job. We have a new job. There's millions of Jews assimilated that have disappeared from the Jewish scene, but we have a new job. Forget about those Jews that assimilated, that are gone. We are going to fix the education system of America. What has the American school done for the mind of that criminal? We taught him how human beings first appeared on the planet. Did we teach him to be a human being? Did we teach him to respect another human being? We taught him about laws and prisons. Did we teach him that even if you're so smart that you don't get caught, you're still wrong? Did we give him a conscience? Moment of silence. Fix the education system. There's more to this madness. The Jewish people need a couch. Quickly. Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem has a new online course that you could join free of charge. The origins of anti-Semitism. Wow. This is really going to help us to learn where is the origin of anti-Semitism. Free online course. Batting for the Jewish people. Yad Vashem Memorial Center in Israel. And then there are others that are security. We have to beef up security. And then there are other voices that we have to awaken the American conscience. Yes. And then we hear more prayer is needed, more Torah is needed, and more good deeds are needed. Now, folks, of course, it's always good to have more Torah, to have more doing of good deeds, to have more prayer. It's always good. Security, always an important thing to a person, to guard oneself, guard one's life, guard one's property, for sure. But here, this is not the solution. This is not the problem. This is not the solution to the problem. These issues, they can help, but they're not the grand slam solution. How did we get into this problem? How are we into this problem? And what is the solution? It says, an amazing words of our sages. Prophetic. People are looking for proofs of God. You need no longer to look and search. Put that Google search away on the side. In the book Breshit Rabbah 33:6, in some versions it's 8. It tells us in the Torah that when Noah had a suspicion that perhaps the flood had stopped, the water had resided, he decided to do a test run. He takes a dove and he sends it. Why? Very simple. he knew that if the dove would find a resting place, a tree, someplace to rest, then he would not return to the ark. However, if the dove would return after a certain period of time, come back to the ark, he would understand that the flood was alive and well still, and it was not time to disembark from the ark. Now that's very interesting, because it says in the Torah, in the portion of Noah, it says that the dove did not find a resting place for his feet. Did not find a resting place. Now that's very interesting, because there are two other places in the Torah that use the same expression of not finding a resting place. Place number two, it says in Deuteronomy 28, it says there that the worst, our sages tell us that we know that in two places in the Torah there were curses. In the portion of Bechukotai, there were the 49 curses, and in the portion of Kitavot, there's the 98 curses. So in the portion of Kitavot in Deuteronomy, it says that our sages tell us an amazing line, that there are 98 curses. However, there is one curse out of the 98 that is equal to all other curses. If you put them all on one side of our scale against the 97 others, the one tips the scale. What is the worst possible curse that's equal to all others? To be thrown out of our land, to be thrown out of the land of Israel. That is the worst. That is equal. That's an amazing thing. Ask people today. That's not one of their answers. That's not one of their answers. And last but not least, the third place is mentioned in the beginning of Lamentations, Eicha, first chapter, third verse. It says that the Jewish people settled outside the land of Israel, and they did not find a resting place. So we have three different occasions where the Torah uses this expression. Number one, when Noah sends the dove. Number two, in the curses in the Torah, in Deuteronomy, the Jewish people will be thrown out of the land of Israel, and they will not find a resting place outside the land of Israel. And number three, when the Jewish people are thrown out of the land of Israel in the time of the prophet Jeremiah, in his book Lamentations, he also says that he prophesies that Jewish people will find no rest. Now, it's an amazing concept. The Jewish people will find no rest outside the land of Israel. Let's look into this further. Number one, in the commentary on the Torah, it's called Torah Tmima by Rabbi Epstein. He writes in his commentary, besides on the 5 books of Moses, he also has a commentary on the scrolls, the Megillot. So he says in Lamentations, chapter 1, verse 3, as we said, his commentary, it's letter 22. I think that's either 22 or 62. Printing here is like kind of bad. So it's either 22 or 62. He says the following. What does it mean that the Jewish people found no rest? First of all, he brings down the last line of what our sages said about the dove. It gives us the answer why the Jewish people will never find a resting place. Why? Because if they found a resting place, they would never return to the land of Israel. That's an amazing accusation. That's an amazing truth. If we had the good life outside the land of Israel, who would ever come back? We found the Messiah. We found our little Jerusalem. So those are the words of the sages. That just like the dove if he would find a resting place, he would not return to the ark. Same too with the Jewish people. If they ever found a resting place outside the land of Israel, they would never want and they would never return to the land of Israel. So, Rabbi Epstein, in his Torah Tmima commentary, he says the following, that the Jewish people sat tight outside the land of Israel. They were enjoying themselves, satisfied outside the land of Israel. And they did not remind themselves, they did not think about coming back to the land of Israel. However, God has a different plan. God has a different plan. And He promises. It's not in a day, it's not in a week, right? It's not hocus pocus here. God always gives free choice. If every time the Jewish people were thrown out of the land of Israel, or in every exile, they were immediately the next day destroyed, then people would get the message. It would be a miraculous reaction. But this, as we will see, approximately how long does God give maximum time for the Jewish people? We will see. To live comfortably outside the land of Israel before it comes to shake and bake, where God starts to shake the ground, the earth, under the feet of the Jewish people. Listen now. Rabbi Epstein, now he throws in his own line here. And it's an amazing line. And just to hear this line, it was worth to get up today. It was worth this whole week. It was worth this whole year. It was worth your life. Listen to this. These words of our sages in Breshit Rabbah 33, 6 or 8. This is very, very important. It's extremely, extremely precious, these words. It's echo, these words, these eternal words, this echo that the Jewish people eat throughout the exile, eternally, will not find rest outside the land of Israel, continues to sound all over the world till this very day. Till this very day. We go on. Our sages tell us in the book Midrash Agadah, in the portion of Noach 8:11. Listen to these words. Just like, these words of our sages, just like the dove did not find a resting place for its legs, so too the Jewish people, they will not have any resting place outside the land of Israel. And just like the dove returned to the ark, so too in the future the Jewish people will return from the exile to the land of Israel because of persecution by the nations. Listen to the words of our sages. The Jewish people, just like the dove returned to the ark because there was no resting place, so too the Jewish people in the end of days, end of times, in the future, will return also, but not probably all on all fours, crawling to the land of Israel. For those of us that do not wake up, God forbid. In our sages' commentary on the book Leviticus, at the beginning of the portion Bechukotai, it's called the Safra. Safra on the book of Leviticus. It says there, look it up, it's chapter 26, paragraph 5. It says the following, quoting a verse in the portion of Bechukotai, that if the Jewish people follow the path of Hashem, they will sit comfortably, safely in the land of Israel, if we follow in God's ways. So, listen to the words of our rabbis, of our sages, on these three words, that in the land of Israel, we will be safe. It goes to teach us, our sages say, that in your land, you will sit and live safely, in peace, but not outside the land of Israel. But not outside the land of Israel. Amazing line. These, once again, this is not a commentary. These are the words, the prophetic words of our holy sages. Midrash Agadah, as I quoted, the Safra on Leviticus. As for the question, folks, we're just going to put it on hold. We will definitely address it. Don't worry about that. Some of you out there, rightfully so, will say, Brother Yehuda, everything's cool. However, look how much the Jewish people are suffering. In fact, today it's Memorial Day in the land of Israel, where we remember Jews that fought for the land of Israel, for the people, for the nation of Israel, for the Torah of Israel. 23,741 have fallen for the mitzvah of living in the land of Israel. That's a lot of Jews that have fallen. So why are we safer in Israel compared to the States or compared to Europe? Of course, we will touch on that in depth. Don't worry about that one. But so far, the ideas here. The ideas here is looking in the long run. You have to look at the big picture, not just now, not for this second. We don't live for this second. There's the next second, and then there's the next minute, and there's a minute after. People have bank accounts. Why? For tomorrow. People have savings for the next generation. Always looking. Don't look at this minute. Look at the next minute. Look into the future. Look at the big picture. That's what we're talking about. Look to the big picture. Rabbi Soloveitchik writes in his book, he says, we have a tremendous lesson that the Jewish people should learn from the holiday of Purim, which took place, the Jewish holiday took place in Persia. What's the lesson? How dangerous it is for the Jewish people outside the land of Israel. How dangerous it is for Jewish people outside the land of Israel. The Rabbi Soloveitchik adds the obvious question. You may ask me, he says, also in the land of Israel, don't we have much tragedy and suffering there? And Rabbi Soloveitchik brings up the question that we all have in the back of our mind, and he gives us the answer. And it's an amazing answer. Amazing answer. The Jewish answer, he writes, the Jewish answer, he writes, is the following. The situation in the land of Israel is dependent upon the Jewish people and only the Jewish people. If we follow, if we repent, if we follow in the path of the Torah, if we sit and learn Torah seriously and do the commandments and believe and have faith in God, everything in the land of Israel, if you see the Jewish people are getting hit, it's because of our mistakes. It's because of our sins. And those are the words of Leviticus. If you follow in my ways, in my path, in my Torah, you will live securely in the land. However, outside the land of Israel is not dependent on the Jewish people. Because here there is a promise that you will not find a resting place outside the land of Israel. As it says in Deuteronomy 28:65. Forever, and he finishes with these words, forever. The Jewish people will not be able to live in security and peace. Okay, we're back after a short break over here. In one of the most amazing prophecies in all of the Torah. Unfortunately, a lot of Gentiles know the Torah, the verses of the prophets, much better than us Jews. So it's kind of embarrassing. But our saintly Rabbi Kahana, of blessed memory, may his blood be avenged, he took this verse that we're going to see from Yechezkel 36:16. He brought it from the back pages of the newspaper and put it on the headlines. He really brought this literally 1,000,000 times, probably more. He said this during his life. And this is this is a foundation of Judaism to understand. So the prophet Ezekiel says the following. The word of Hashem came to me saying, 36:16. Son of man, the house of Israel dwell on their land, and they have contaminated with their way. So I poured my wrath upon them because of the blood that they had shed in the land. Sin number one, very clear. Jewish people, there were many murderous acts that were taking place in the land of Israel. And because they had defiled the land with their idols. Idol worshipping, straight out. We could look in different sources, in the Talmud and other sources. There's a whole bunch of sins. These are cardinal sins. So what's the result? God scatters us. I scattered them among the nations, and they were dispersed among the lands, according to their way. They came among the nations where they came, and they desecrated my holy name. When it was said of them, these are the people of Hashem, but they have departed his land. Listen to this, it's amazing. When it comes to the sins of the Jewish people in the land of Israel, it's clear as day. We had sinned. Murder, idol worshipping, other things. However, what's going on over here? The Jewish people, we just arrived here. We just got off the boat. We just got off the airplane. Why is God telling us through the prophet Ezekiel, why is he telling us that the fact that we came, we were dispersed, nobody asked us, we were dispersed amongst the nations? This was a discretion of God's name, because the nations looked at us, the Jews being tossed out of the land of Israel, the Jews living outside the land of Israel, not in their homeland. And they said, can these people be the people of Hashem, of God? Can't be. Jewish people, if there's a God, they should be in the land of Israel. If they're not in the land of Israel, apparently there is no God. Or he has no strength. So, disregarding how religious, how righteous, how upright we might be, the fact is that there is a national desecration of God's name when the Jewish people are outside the land of Israel. A national desecration of God's name. A person on a private, personal level, he could be the most righteous guy in the world. He could have the longest beard, the longest coat, the biggest hat, few hats, longest side curls. He could be saving Jews left and right, like many fine people outside the land of Israel do. A tremendous job, tremendous sacrifice. But does not change the fact that with that personal righteousness that they do have, that they have attained, there is no escape from the national desecration of God's name as long as Jews are not in the land of Israel and are scattered amongst the nations, with the nations looking upon the Jewish people. Where is the omnipotent God? Where is the all-powerful God of Israel? If there was a God, he would have brought his people back to their homeland, back to the land of Israel. So that is a desecration of the name, and there's nothing we could do. There's nothing our good deeds can change that national desecration. No matter on a personal level how righteous we might be, we cannot change that national desecration of God's name. And therefore God says, I took pity on my holy name, which the house of Israel desecrated, and say to them, not for your sake, not because you're righteous, because I'm sick and tired of the desecration, this national desecration of God's name, where the Jewish people have been exiled. So therefore I will bring the Jewish people back to the land of Israel, though we are not righteous at all, but for the sake of God's name. Now the Jewish people are back in their homeland like it's supposed to be, like the Torah said it would be. Okay, so with that foundation of Ezekiel, very, very important. Folks, a person has to open their eyes. I always liked it. There's the bug rabbi, Rabbi Moshe Vaya. They call him the bug rabbi. He has many, many books how to check all kinds of fruits, grains, vegetables. And he has this great line. The most important thing is, forget about the different techniques of checking, lights, camera action, forget that. Open your eyes. Look. I always love seeing that. Like, number one, open up your eyes. Dear friends, every week I have, God has given me the merit to have guests every week from the Mir Yeshiva in Jerusalem. Most of 90% or so of the boys are from New York that come to my house, Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Muncie. And in the afternoon on Shabbat, take them for about a 2-hour hike, showing them the connection of Elon Moreh, where Abraham first came into the land, and all these sources, the Talmudic sources, which connect us to Elon Moreh, to the city of Shechem, Nablus. And one of my first things that I do is I say, close your eyes. Now open your eyes. Close your eyes, now open your eyes. And in front of them is a beautiful vineyard in Elon Moreh. By the way, Elon Moreh has 6 such vineyards. And I say, you are witnessing in front of your very eyes prophecy. What prophecy, they say? We see a vineyard. No, this is prophecy. Folks, we just have to open up our eyes. If we look at history, in the past 300 years, what is the clear direction? What is the clear sign that God is showing us? He's showing us the way, showing us the path. What is the direction? Where are we supposed to be heading? Look in history 300 years. Folks, in my hand right here, I have 8 pages of history, not of 300 years, but $173 years. 173 years. An amazing, amazing history that I got off the Jewish Agency. This is the religious coming up and settling the land of Israel way, way before what the secular Jews in Israel call the first and second Aliyah, coming up to the land of Israel. This was a specific list by the Jewish Agency to show that we're talking about 173 years of Jewish settlement, coming the greatest of the greats, the big time names of tremendous yeshivot, Talmudic academies, rabbis, coming to the land of Israel. Open our eyes. In the last 300 years, God is knocking on the door. God is knocking on the door. And He's showing us the way. He's showing us that the future of the Jewish people is in the land of Israel. God is putting an end to the exiles. Open up our eyes. Where are now all the millions of Jews in Europe, in North Africa, in Russia, in France? Where are they? God is closing, as they say in Hebrew, closing the basta. He's closing the stores. It's a closeout. He's closing the exile. It is so clear. You don't have to be a scholar. You don't have to be a giant. Just have to have the basic amount of IQ to understand this. God is closing the doors to the exiles, one after another. And places where Jews remain, either the Jews have disappeared, they have assimilated, they're gone, or anti-Semitism is on the rise. The knock at the door is getting louder, just like a woman that's about to give birth. As time progresses during the birth, the birth pains become more and more severe and closer together. It's so obvious. There's an amazing book that Rabbi Shmuel Eliyahu, the rabbi of Tzfat, has just come out. It's called Prophecy. It's a gigantic book. It's about this big, this high, and it has hundreds of pages. And in this book, this is like an amazing book. He must have received the idea from above. Rabbi Eliyahu, he takes Israel today in the year 5779, 2019. He looks at the land of Israel and he shows what a superpower the land of Israel has become. And we're not talking about only high-tech, we're talking about spiritually. The amount of Torah here, the amount of sages, the amount of Talmudic academies that are here, the amount of people that have repented here in the land of Israel. It's an amazing book. Next time I see him, God willing, I will tell him he must translate this into different languages for the Jewish people to see. Can we understand what we're talking about here? There's an amazing redemption that it started 300 or so years ago, and slowly but surely building and becoming stronger, and the wave and another wave, and then it's a tidal wave. 6 million Jews today. Ken Yirbu, there should be many, many more. Seeing spiritually and materialistic the Jewish state, the land of Israel, becoming a superpower. It says in the Talmud, in the Tractate of Sanhedrin, the clearest sign, there are hundreds of signs, but there's one that's the clearest. That is when the land of Israel begins to give off its fruits and vegetables in a beautiful manner. That is the greatest sign. When you see that the land of Israel is beginning to produce wines, fruits, vegetables, olive oil, this is the clearest sign that the redemption is right around the corner. Folks, when Mark Twain in the 1800s came to visit the land of Israel, look at the words that he wrote. Look at what he wrote about the land of Israel. He said it was much, much more desolate than what he had even heard about. And he heard that the land of Israel was totally desolate. This is in the 1800s. Look today. You don't have to look further. Look at me. I live in Elon Moreh. In Elon Moreh, there are Elon Moreh, we have 400 families. There are 2 wine companies. This year, they won gold medals in France for an international wine company. Look a little bit further from Elon Moreh, in the surrounding settlements. 5 or 6 gold medals for the wines of the settlements that are surrounding Elon Moreh, the Jewish settlements. Just like the prophet Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu said, that there will, in the future, God will once again make the hills of Samaria, of Shomron, bring grapes and bring wine. And we're blind. Can't we see? On one hand, this is a two-way street. On one hand, God is closing shop. All over the world, He's closing shop. We've lost many Jews. And the anti-Semitism, why is it climbing? Because the exile is coming to an end. And the knocks are becoming louder and louder and louder. In October 17th, 1975, 44 years ago. Listen to these words. This is an amazing article. This is an article by Rabbi Kahana. It's titled, "A Jew Dies in Brooklyn." A Jew died in Brooklyn a few weeks ago, and leading rabbis rushed to the aid of the Crown Heights and other Jewish lower class areas by advising them to begin carrying money on Shabbat. The case is, of course, the one in which a religious Jew was murdered in cold blood by a criminal hoodlum after being held up and telling the robber that he carried no money because of the Sabbath. The murderer shot him dead on the spot. The reaction of the official Jewish leadership, local and otherwise, Rabbi Emanuel Rackman and Norman Lamb, called for an inquiry into the permissibility of allowing Jews to carry money on Sabbath because of saving of a life. Seymour Siegel of the quote-unquote halachic conservative movement agreed. In Crown Heights, Mendel Shem Tov, I don't think this is any relationship to our Tomer Devora. No relationship, don't get that mixed up. Chairman of the board of the Crown Heights Jewish Community Council declared, "We have no plans to give up the neighborhood. If we have any plans, it's to build it up." The Rebbe of Chabad, his secretary, Rabbi Leib Groner, declared, he, the Rebbe, feels that we can live in peace with other ethnic groups in the area. Through a proper meeting of minds, there will be no problems. And one Motel Sharfstein, resident of Crown Heights, was quoted as saying that the anti-Semitic incidents are infrequent. Nobody's leaving, that's for sure, he said. We're here to stay, and we're expanding. We don't believe in running. I'm skipping over. And finally, all that I have said because I know that the Jews will never listen to the real and only true and viable solution. Aliyah, coming to the land of Israel. The same leaders whose mentality leads them to come up with such solutions as blackmail money are the same leaders who are so blind and so tiny and so incapable of seeing the black cloud of destruction that is rolling in to envelope the exile and destroy it. The anger of the Almighty with the people that insists on the flesh pots of the exile and humiliates the land of Israel by refusing to return to it will cause a destruction of Jewry unparalleled by any other that preceded it. And no one sees and no one understands, and instead we hear the voices of the religious Jews. We have no plans to give up the neighborhood. If we have any plans, it's to build it up. He, the Rebbe, feels that we can live in peace with other ethnic groups in the area. Through a proper meeting of minds, there will be no problems. We're here to stay, and we are expanding. Now, Rabbi Kahana, greater love hath no neighborhood in the land of Israel than shown by the religious Jews of the New Jerusalem Crown Heights. The neighborhood, what neighborhood? What binds the religious Jews to kiss the soil of Eastern Parkway? The impure area of the land of the nations. What madness and blindness leads them to risk their lives for Brooklyn and Empire Boulevard when Jerusalem and the Holy Land beckon? We can live in peace, a proper meeting of minds. My God, I think that we are all mad. A proper meeting of minds, the kind that led the Crown Heights Jewish Council to plead with the Jewish Defense League to come twice to the area to protect Jews going to vote. The kind that led a previous Rebbe to flee Europe. The kind that saw the Lubavitcher movement uprooted from Ukraine, Slovakia, Lithuania, and Hungary. We can live in peace. Strange Jews who urge me to bring the Messiah closer by having my 3-year-old daughter light candles on the Sabbath. Fine, my daughter does. And I tell you, you could bring the Messiah tomorrow by showing the faith in God that will see you throw off the exile and the horrors of the anti-Semites who stand on the verge of murdering you and go home. The commandment of living in the land. Do this and we will all light candles together in Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria. And above all, we will live and not die like dogs in Brooklyn of the Gentiles. And the list, Pittsburgh of the Gentiles, Poway, California of the Gentiles, and the list goes on. Dear friends, listen closely. Rabbi Kahana coined the phrase never again. Rabbi Kahana established the Jewish Defense League. One might mistakenly think that Rabbi Kahana meant by never again that never again will a Holocaust happen to the Jewish people. One might think that Rabbi Kahana had a solution for anti-Semitism. The solution was Jewish defense. One might mistakenly think that Rabbi Kahana believed that every Jew at 22 stay alive with a 45 would guarantee Jewish survival outside the land of Israel. If you understood that, you totally got it wrong, big time. Rabbi Kahana said on dozens and dozens of times what he meant. Never again doesn't mean that a Holocaust will not happen. We spoke today about the promise that the Jewish people will not find security outside the land of Israel. However, folks, Rabbi Kahana meant that there will never again be a situation where the Jewish people will go down like they went down in Germany and in Poland and other places. That will never. The way that the Jewish people, what they call went to the slaughter like sheep. That will not happen again. When Rabbi Kahana established the Jewish Defense League and coined every Jew at 22, what did he mean? He said this dozens of times. He wrote this, that Jewish Defense League, Jewish security outside the land of Israel is an important vessel to give a little bit of more time to the Jews to organize and come back to the land of Israel. It buys us time. But it is not the solution. Not the JDL, not the security guards. Never again. Folks, let me get this clear. We spoke about how there are many individuals who are tremendous giants, and on an individual base, they create a sanctification of God's name. There's a movement, and there's other people that go out, and they do a great job. I wish I had a 1% sacrifice like these emissaries go out. They go out to all corners of the world, and they bring Torah and Judaism to the Jewish people. They do tremendous things. I personally have relatives who are from Chabad. I know that many people get nervous. You can't say anything, can't say anything that needs correction. You just have to speak positive. But truth is truth. There are basketball dynasties that are great in 7-8 areas, but they're in last place in defense, or they're in last place in different categories. Life is not simple ABC. Chabad does great things. They do 1,000,001 great things. I have tremendous respect for them. However, all of us, all of us, there's things that we need to correct. I myself, there's a lot of things that I have to correct. So let's just get that straight. Because we're talking about what needs to be corrected, that doesn't take off of the Chabad movement. However, let's get this very, very clear. That as God is emptying out the exile, on the other hand, Chabad is in there, and they're going, and they're trying to revive Jewish communities. They're trying places where God is closing shop. They're going back there. And let's try to dig in here. Let's try to strengthen. We're going to build schools and build shuls. Now listen very closely to the difference here. Rabbi Kahana many times said, he not only said, but he gave this advice, and many rabbis took. There were rabbis that had congregations, and they were very influential on congregations. They brought a lot of people closer to Judaism. They came to Rabbi Kahana and said, Rabbi, we're doing a great job here. Not to boast, but just to tell the truth. We want to know, should we come to the land of Israel, or we're not going to have as much of an effect, it's seemingly, or should we stay here? And Rabbi Kahana told one after another, it is permissible to stay here if you're doing a good job and you're bringing Jews closer. But the message has to be day in and day out. You stay, you're allowed to stay. Take 3, 4, 5 years maximum. And the message has to be that we must leave here. Strengthen Judaism. Bring back a lot of Jews to the Torah, to the truth. However, the message has to be clear that there is no future here in our congregation, in our community, or anywhere else outside the land of Israel. And we must leave. And then after 3, 4, or 5 years maximum, you and your family come and serve as an example, because a person talks, you got to put your money where your mouth is. You got to put up or shut up, as they say. So this is the difference. If Chabad was in there and going and saving Jews, and with the message of there is no future here outside the land of Israel, whether it's in Russia, where they're in all these unusual places in the world, If that was the message, I would not say anything. But that is not the message at all. It is building up the neighborhoods, building up the communities. And God is trying to close the exile, and they're there. Imagine Egypt, right? God is closing the Egyptian exile, right? We just celebrated Passover. And then we have the Chabad emissaries. Let's go back to Egypt. You know, to strengthen, there were 80% Jews that stayed back in the land of Egypt. Let's go strengthen those 80% of Jews. Let's go back there. I mean, this is ridiculous. God is showing us that He's closing the exile. He's showing us 1,000,001 signs that are happening right before our eyes. The superpower of the land of Israel, people of Israel, the Torah in the land of Israel, spiritually in the land of Israel. He's showing us, and we're going, and we're reopening. We're reopening these communities. So, folks, with God's help today, do not go anywhere. We have a tremendous, I call him my brother. His name is Natan Shachar. He's a hero of the Jewish people. Sometimes we think of heroes, these guys with big muscles. You know, not at all. This friend of mine in Elon Moreh, he made history. Elon Moreh has been existing for 39 years. And in those 39 years, there was only one family that made Aliyah, that moved from America straight to Elon Moreh. That family is no longer in Elon Moreh. In fact, I don't know where they are. Second family in 39 years to bring the family, the kids, is Natan Shachar. Folks, we're getting, by the way, this is the first class. Do not go anywhere. Next week, with God's help, we're having the second part. And it's even more important. Listening to the words, to our sources, to listen to the message that God is giving us to leave the exile. The importance of leaving the exile, of not shunning the land of Israel. So please come back next week. But we also need practical. There's an amazing hero, Natan Shachar. He moved with his family. Since then, his in-laws have moved to the land of Israel. They do not speak. His in-laws do not speak almost a word of Hebrew. He is a tremendous success story. He will tell you practically how to do it. Do not think that you have to be a millionaire to come to the land of Israel. It's jive. He will set the record straight. So please, he's part 2, and next week we're going to continue with part 3. So make sure to listen to his presentation. Oh, last but not least, from our sponsor here, if anybody out there, I hate money issues. That's why we don't advertise, or we don't ask for anything. One thing, our great cameraman Ephraim has told me that in order to upgrade the classes, we need a different type of camera, and that costs roughly $100, 300 shekel, $100. If you can't give all of it, you know, then everybody, 10 people, give $10, and it's doable. Where do you send it, Ephraim? Send it to Mike Gazovsky in Tapuach, or you could put a comment down. I will his full address I will put in the comment section here below in the video. Look for his full address. You could send it to him. Blessings till next week.